This is the Happiness Breakthrough Show with your host, Becky and Dr. Mark Leonard. Hey, my friends, today is an awesome episode about love. And it's a special day for us because it happens to be right now, as we are recording, our 33rd wedding anniversary. Happy anniversary, babe.
Happy anniversary. It's a good thing to be doing today.
It really is. And, one of the things that we just had someone ask us about our marriage, and they're like, you guys have been married for 33 years? How have you done it? That is astounding. And we thought this would be a great episode because one of the parts of the excellence formula is care.
And care is a really important part or element of a good marriage. So, what a better day. There isn't a better day to be talking about caring for your spouse, caring for your family, caring for your...
Absolutely. So I hope you're excited about learning a little bit about how to strengthen and deepen your marriage. And we're going to give you some really cool tools of things that we have utilized over 33 years. We're going to share, of course, as we always do, some stories. And we are just really looking forward to just spending some time with you because I think this is one of the most important topics right now that I could possibly think of as I look around the world and as we have watched, well, if any of you are watching one of the probably most violent contact sports out there, politics, there is just an absolute lack of care, lack of understanding, lack of patience. And as we get in our car, and you look at people that cut you off, and you look at some of the new laws that are in effect around the country about how people are treating each other, there is no better place to practice and to learn how to be your very best in the world than at home.
Oh, that's so true. Do you remember when the kids were growing up and I used to always tell them, if you can't treat each other with respect, then how are you going to treat anybody else with respect?
I wish we had pictures of them sharing that very large shirt. Like when they had to get in the shirt together or when they were locked in the bathroom together because they were not sharing.
That's not abusive, I promise. The bathroom was the only place where there was nothing to do but figure things out together. So that's where we didn't actually lock them in, but we'd make them go into the bathroom. And then they had to stay there until they could figure out how to get along again. I mean, you would think that they would have played with the bathtub toys underneath the sink, shampoo all over the walls. They could have gotten into lots of trouble, but bathroom was boring.
Because we know they were not going to clean it.
No. But they did. They had to go into the bathroom until they figured it out. And they always did. They always came out laughing eventually, or at least they made us think that they'd figured it out. So kudos to you if you didn't, kids.
Right? It's funny as we're talking about care and we're talking about kids and building relationships. There's a story that I remember, or I guess a conversation that I remember when we were first married. For those of you that have not heard a part of this story before, we were married at 18 years old, 2 weeks out of high school. My parents were divorced. And I had at this moment a fairly estranged relationship with my dad. And he had come into town and he invited us to meet him for, I believe it was dinner. We went out to Palm Springs. We were
Yes.
living in Southern California, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Okay.
if I remember, didn't we go? Oh yeah, you had.
I had the newborn baby.
Right. So
Cute little newborn baby. And he'd come into town to meet her and he took us out to dinner and then gave us the life lecture.
do you remember what he said?
He said, your relationship comes before that baby. And I was like,
You were so offended.
or rude.
You were so. Were you offended by that?
I was a little offended at first by that because this newborn baby that I was holding was completely incapable of taking care of herself. Like I would have to put her first in all of her needs in order for her to be able to sustain life. So I'm looking at her and I'm looking at him and I'm like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Whatever. Whatever. He was right. So he went on to say
He went on to say that if you put your marriage absolutely first. If and he turned to me and he said, Mark, if you take care of
Mhm.
Becky and put her first, and Becky, if you put Mark first, the kids will be taken care of because the core element in the home was
Mhm.
taken care of, and it was
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. He said that it will naturally all fix itself. All the things will turn out the way they're supposed to if you two are united.
There was a really interesting aha moment for me that day
Mm.
because I was looking at him, I'm thinking, Dad, you're divorced. And that marriage was not healthy for many years. And then it hit me. He was speaking from experience of I did it wrong.
Right.
And that might have been one of those turning points in my life where I changed from child to adult because I was learning from somebody who had done it wrong and sharing their expertise around that. And that was a really big aha day for me.
My parents also were in a second marriage. My dad was divorced previous to meeting my mom. And I always thought that they were the best example to me of a married couple. Now, I mean, they had their struggles like anybody. However, there were little things that my dad did for my mom that were so tender. I mean, poor Mark, he walked into like high expectation because my dad would do things like he would paint my mom's nails or he'd paint her toenails. It was so cute. And so then we were married and I'm like, "Aren't you gonna paint my nails?" And he's like, "No.
It's like,
Why would I do that?"
what? I'm not really sure what that means. Is there a hammer? Are we painting the nails a different color before we use them? Your dad also was really, really big about Mother's Day and
Very
treating
big.
your mom like an absolute queen. And I didn't have that example in my home
No,
growing up.
those were some rough years. Just my dad really, with all the flaws he had, the thing that he did so stellar was the respect that he showed my mom. He used to take her shopping. Have so many memories of kids staying home. We had to babysit each other, 6 little kids. It was a hot mess. But anyway, my dad would take my mom into town. We lived like 45 minutes away from the malls and everything. And he'd take her shopping for the night and she'd come home with bags of clothes. And he loved pampering her. Loved like just showing her that he loved her by doing those kinds of things for her. He'd come home from a flight and I remember when my mom got her ears pierced
Mm.
because he came home and he was like, "This lady had her ears pierced and it was so cute and I think you should do it." And he took us all down to get mom's ears pierced. And then we all wanted them and he said we had to wait. That was kind of sad.
A, how old was your mom? And B, how old were you when that happened? That is a real
Elementary school.
that seems so abnormal to how people live today, especially when didn't we get our girls' ears pierced when they were infants?
We did. We chose differently. Actually, we were like, "Girls, you have to wait until you're older." And then our oldest was like 10 and she's like, "Come on." Anyway, she talked us into it.
She was a saleswoman
But
beside
she
of that?
was, she was good. She still is. We got them all pierced at the same time. It was kind of fun for our fourth, for her seventh birthday, I want to say. All of the girls got their ears pierced. But I would say, like, even though Mark struggled, he didn't have that same example. There's definitely been areas where he has been like that too.
Okay, do share.
I mean, the poor guy though, because he wants to take me out shopping and he's like, "Let's go get something." And I'm all, "No."
Okay, so there's a few things that I have learned about our marriage over the years, and one has to do with love languages.
Yes. Love languages is huge. Showing love to the person in the way that they feel loved, the way they like what they connect with as love. is very different than showing how you feel love, and it may or may not be the way that they connect with love.
I believe that we each have two love languages. The first is how we like someone to show us that they love us. And then we have the language of how we show somebody else. And those are our
Mhm.
norms. So
Yes.
for maybe let's just do this right here, because why not just throw us underneath the bus and see if we could crawl ourselves out? What would you say? I don't know how we want to ask this question because I have two in my mind. The first is, what is your love language? How do you love me to show that I love you? And then what is your natural norm for how you show me love? Not my languages, right? Because I think how I show my propensity for how I show you love is different than the language of how you like to receive love.
Gotcha. I'm
So now I could also answer and say, I think I know what your love languages are, but I don't know how we want to do this.
okay. Well, I can answer the questions.
Okay, let's go
I
for it.
think let's start there. And the way that I feel love is when Mark is physical with me. And it doesn't have to be a romantic physical, even just scratching my back while we're watching a show or holding hands or like simple touches is for me is a love language for Mark and I. I would say it's also the way I show love, but I show it less with you than I think I used to. But it's definitely how I show my love with my kid, like
Mm,
tickling their back, right?
oh yeah, I would agree. Now, what's interesting to me is when we were first married, my love language of how I like to show love was not physical touch.
No.
In fact, it was very uncomfortable for me to hold hands or to sit close. I would have been just fine having two different chairs to watch TV.
I know. I'm like, no, I'm laying on you. What are you talking about? A different
It
chair.
was like, I am trying to watch a show here, and you were like, "Get-
Legs are over his legs.
you're making me hot. It is uncomfortable. And you were so in my air that it wa it was really uncomfortable for a while, and I actually wonder when that switched for me, and I don't know if I could go back and say, "Oh, this is when it switched," where now because the other day, we sat down to watch a show, and you were sitting next to me, as we always do, and I actually grabbed your leg and draped it over my legs.
Yeah. I would say it's been a long time building. I would say you do a lot more now than you did even 5 years ago.
Okay, so there is hope for those of you that have not been married a very long time because we're celebrating 33 years, and she just said 5 years ago I became a better husband. That's what I heard.
But I still feel it like it's also built.
Absolutely.
Okay, how do I show my love to you? I show my love to you in acts of service. It's hanging up your clothes or putting away your things. I don't know if you guys are aware, if we've told you this before, but Mark and I have ADHD. Both of us, our 4 children. And we both exhibit symptoms very differently. For me, I get like in my head about things, and he's like, are, are you going to talk? I just said something to you, and in my head, I answered it and way more, but it never came out. So things that we've had to have conversations about for him, it's like a bomb went off in our house. He leaves things everywhere. And so I've had to come up with like systems for him for like where to put things. And then I still put things away for him all the time.
That's because I know that you love to show me how much you love me by picking up after me. It just didn't even sound right when I said it. So I know, babe.
No, it's okay. I would say that early in our marriage, kind of like him with the physical touch. Earlier in our marriage, it would really bother me, and I would get really frustrated about, like, "I'm picking up your stupid socks again," or "I'm putting away your mayonnaise for you," and it doesn't bother me anymore. I feel like it's what I do to show him I love him because it's just who he is, and it's not an offense to me that he does it. I would say that the last couple of years, this is hard for me to answer because I feel like I do less for you since I've been in school than I used to do for you, and that's difficult.
But I think that in marriage, it is a growing element of both how I show my love to you, how you show your love to me, but also how I am realizing and recognizing that when you do something, it may not be in my language, it may not be how I want or my first choice on how you show love. However, when I really take a step back and I go, wow, she just did that for me. By the way, probably the one thing that you used to do, and I know you despised, was iron my clothes.
That's true. If I get out an iron, it's because I truly want to do something for him to show him that I care about him. I do not iron.
Well,
I
there's 2 reasons.
hate ironing.
I know you loathe ironing, really, really loathe.
Yes.
However, there's been a great invention of 2 things. 1, travel clothes that you don't need ironing.
Yes.
That's invention number 1 that has saved marriages around the world.
Yes.
And the second is
The dryer.
the dryer. You take it right out of the dryer and hang it up right away. And then the third is find a profession that you don't need to wear dress clothes.
True. Thank you for that.
You are welcome.
Yes.
I did this for you.
Okay, so now it's flipped.
Okay. So the way that you like to receive love, as far as I understand it, is the touch. So I mean, here we are right now. I've got my hand on your leg, and we're sitting. Legs are touching, and we are absolutely sitting next to each other. Uh, it's interesting. Whenever there is a conflict in our marriage, it's fascinating because I will step back and I'll recognize, oh, I moved away physically because it is not my natural to have touch.
That's true.
And
But I move away physically too. I think we both do. I'll notice like, oh, we must be struggling with something because we're sitting further apart on the couch.
yep.
There's like a whole cushion between us instead of like the cushion seam between us.
There is something that has become a physical obstacle. And I think one of the things that we've done in our marriage is that we've been able to step back and go, oh, wait, there's something different here. One that gives us a key, or it identifies that there's an underlying, maybe a problem or frustration that we now need to work through.
Mhm.
And I think when we begin to understand our individual love languages and when it's off, we're now able to step back and go, okay, if it's off, let's identify why and then begin to talk through it.
Mhm.
The other love language that I think that you have or like is you don't want to talk about it. You
I was just called out. Did you guys hear that?
And so for me, who is loquacious and wants to just get in and solve, I recognize that you need your space. And that does not mean that you are offended or mad. You just need space to process. And so when you need that space, it now lies on my shoulders to give that to you. Because if I'm offended that you need the space, why am I offended that you want love differently than how I want to show it? That seems ridiculous to me. Because when we go out to dinner and it's our anniversary, so if we go get sushi,
You guys know we're gonna be going tonight? Yes.
then it's okay if you like a different sushi roll than me, because we like different things. No one gets upset when you go out to dinner and the guy gets a hamburger and she gets a salad, the husband doesn't go, "You don't love me anymore because you want a salad."
Yeah.
Yet when and because this is where we're comfortable, this is what we like to do, and yet in a marriage, people get so upset, they're like, "Just let me solve this, I wanna talk this through," and if the other partner isn't ready to talk it through, why are you trying to force yourself? Because if you force a conversation, it doesn't end up well.
True. True. Space to process. That's huge for me.
So that would be your second. Now, how do I like to show love? My natural is to buy gifts. My natural is to take you shopping. My natural is to, I will even go so far as to say, force you to buy new clothes.
He does. He does have to. You're right. You're right. But I also, as you were saying that, I was thinking about how your love language is gifts. And you guys, do you know how hard it is when somebody's love language is gifts and you are not the spender and they are the spender? Do you know how many times I've gone to buy something like he doesn't get his love language fulfilled very often because he's already gotten it. And I'm like, well, there's that. What am I going to get him for Father's Day? I don't know. He already got the thing I was going to get him. It's true.
Okay, so I
So
I could
I
be
know you like, I know you love that. And I'm sorry.
so however, I know I'm also an impulsive buyer. And you are being so cruel in our marriage right now that you are making me wait to get that tool, that device, that absolute thing of necessity to make our marriage better is that new iPad.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
So cruel. Have a
So
budget.
dang budgets. Despise when you use the B word on me.
You know, truth be told though, I one of our kids quite a few years ago, they were newlyweds and they called me up and they're like, "Mom, what do I do? For Christmas, I bought my spouse all of this stuff." And they went to town. They researched and they figured out exactly what their spouse would need. And then they like bought all the things. And it was a good gift. And they were like, it was like they didn't even care. And their heart was broken about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. I did everything that I could to really make them feel special, make them feel like this was a big deal for them. And it was kind of met with a meh, you know? And I said, okay, well, then maybe it's their love language. Have you guys taken the love language test? And they said, I don't think that they had.
No.
I knew. You know how that is. Mom can see like 20 years down the road. And I was like, well, I guarantee you it's not your spouse's love language. I think that your spouse's love language is potentially words of affirmation. Just because their spouse liked to like anytime there was something that they would like, I would find notes from them in my books and or like they would write a letter to somebody. And so anyway, they took the love languages test and sure enough, his was gifts and acts of service and then hers was words of affirmation. And so it changed the way that they started showing each other they loved each other. So we are going to actually
We will in the show notes, we will give you some resources about this because I think it's really important for when you are in a marriage, and it doesn't matter if you're a brand new newlywed, if you've been married for 5, 7 years, or if you've been married 33 glorious, happy Hollywood honeymoon style years. That's us. Or 50 years plus like your parents. I believe it's important for us to understand the love language of the other person, but I also believe it is vital in a marriage for us to step back and look at if I'm offended, am I offended because their love language is different than mine?
That's so true. And also to be able to step back and say, what is my spouse doing? Or what is my my parent or my sibling or anybody in a relationship, what are they doing to show care for me that may not be my love language, but I can say, yes, I know that they care for me because of X, Y, and Z. Like my love language is not necessarily service. However, I know that Mark shows his love for me by making me dinner every night that I'm gone at school. Like, I don't love to cook, and every night I come home and he's thrown something together for me. Or, he cleans the bathroom for me, made the toilet.
So ironing and bathrooms, the things that you vehemently despise.
That's true. And he takes it on for me, and I can say, even though acts of service is not necessarily my love language, I can feel cared for and loved because I know he does that for me to care for me. He shows his care for me by those things that he does.
I know that the happiness in marriage exists or is multiplied whenever I give you words of affirmation with service, touch, and yeah.
Perfect.
In all seriousness, really understanding how your spouse responds and having that conversation together. By the way, there's another really fascinating one that goes with this, and a fabulous, fabulous study that was done about intimacy. And I don't want to turn this into a really deep conversation, but fabulous studies that show intimacy and how we are all built differently, and understanding what each other like in intimate relationships is really, really vital to a successful marriage.
Yeah, having very deep conversations together about you and your spouse and what your expectations are and what your intimacy love language is. I mean, there's so much out there that tells us that, well, the man is this and the woman is this, and there's just so many studies out there that show that that's really incorrect, and that it isn't just the man and it's not just the woman, and it's just that there's more than one. What's the word I'm looking for?
Style.
There, yeah, maybe the husband does want intimacy more than the wife, but maybe the wife wants it more than the husband. And there's actually statistics to show that it's not just one over the other. And so, really understanding who you guys are and what makes you tick, and having those hard conversations about what makes you happy and what your love language is about that will go so far in both of you feeling fulfilled in that part of your relationship, because let's face it, it's important.
Oh, it's absolutely vital, and I still remember one of our, religious leaders telling us, and I'll kind of poke fun at this comment, but I think it stands very true. I was asking him how he's doing, and he just turned to me and he said, "You know, Mark, if I could just get the teenagers to stop having sex and the married couples to start having sex, I wouldn't have anything to do." It's so true, because as people get comfortable, sometimes they grow apart for intimately. And having that difficult conversation can be life altering. So, on that, also, we'll put in the show notes, we'll give you some resources. When you sign up, we'll actually send all these things over to you, because I really want you to have these
Mhm.
to help strengthen your marriage. These are the things that we've done. So, those are two tools. I have one more that I'd like to share of ways, and this is one that you taught me many years ago, and I call this the $3 marriage solution.
Are you ready? It's so easy, you guys. But part of showing care for each other is the way you talk about each other. And I remember years ago, my BFF, other than my honey, if you want to talk about ways to strengthen your marriage, have your spouse be your best friend. But anyway, other than Mark, my girlfriend and I were talking about how people like in our circle of friends were so negative about their spouses, and it became really toxic. And we didn't want to be a part of that. And so we decided to do something to change how we felt about our spouse.
So they went to I think it was a conference or an author was presenting his book about relationships, was it not? Is that where you found out about this?
No, I
Or
mean,
did you come up with
correct
this?
me if I'm wrong, but I thought we just made it up.
Are you serious? Oh, let's trademark this because you will save marriages all around the world. I use this in my coaching all the time. I didn't know who to attribute this to.
Okay, well, I'll have to do this research because
Okay.
I'll have to reach out to her too, because I thought that we just made it up.
Well, if you made this up, this is absolutely fantastic. And I use this in my coaching. This is a fabulous tool. And I call it the $3 marriage solution. Go down, it may be a little bit more because of inflation. Go down to the dollar store and you're going to buy 2 poster boards, 2 pens, and some tape.
That's it.
So maybe it's $5 now.
And it's a 30-day challenge.
And what you do is you take a piece of poster board and you put it on your spouse's side of the room, right? And we all know that every spouse has their side. We know because as you look at the floor, it's whose socks are. No. But you tape it up and in the middle, you just write, if I was doing this with Becky, and by the way, we've done this multiple times in our marriage. It is amazing to do. I just write things I love about Becky and I put a circle around it. And on day 1, I'll write her blue eyes. I mean, aren't they glowing today? They're absolutely amazing. On day 2, maybe I'll talk about her hair. On day 3, I'll talk about how she did the dishes or cooked a wonderful meal or how she spent time with the grandkids or whatever it is. But something interesting happens about 2 weeks in because you don't want to repeat the things that you love about your spouse. And all of a sudden, it got hard.
Yeah. Like there's all those things that are the easy things to talk about. And then you have to really dig deep about the things that really matter that are not the obvious things. And that's when it gets really special. Is you like how much time you spend really thinking about the thing that you're going to write that day about your spouse. It just floods you with these emotions, endorphins, probably endorphins,
Yeah.
right?
And serotonins, absolutely.
It just floods you with all of those like love hormones, and you just feel so much gratitude for your spouse and who they are and who they bring to the marriage. It's just really special.
It's magical.
But it's also magical for the other person who gets to read it.
It is. Even if their love language, going back to that, is not words of affirmation or gifts, when you begin to see the things that your spouse loves about you, you begin to change how you see your spouse because you see how much they care for you. And that's a really important aspect of care is when you show someone you care, they begin to open up their heart to your care. And it creates a really strong bond and connection. So amazing tool. So 3 great things that we'll give you a link in the show notes, but we definitely want you to go get this information because we'll send you the information about the love languages. We'll send you the information about what was the second thing?
Like the intimacy love language.
Yep. That's what, sorry, I was trying to remember.
There's
a term for it, but I just can't come up with it right now.
There is. I don't have it right now either, but I just know that when you look at Mark and I as best friends, we had to figure this stuff out too. And that component of our marriage was actually the thing that was a big struggle for us for a long time. And finding resources that helped us understand who we were and that we weren't broken was just, it actually revolutionized our marriage. And so we will share some of that with you because that's a really crucial part of your marriage. So
And then we'll send you the instructions on how to do the poster board challenge. Because if you do those 3 things, understand your love languages, you understand your intimacy languages, and you understand what it is that you love about each other, suddenly that marriage will have a bed to flourish in.
yeah.
Ooh, double entendre there with bed to flourish in.
Baby.
Wow. Trying to keep this family gated, Becky. The lights are getting hot.
But it also will give you the same things that you need to then have your family be strengthened too. Because like Mark and I said, as you strengthen your relationship with each other and you are on the same page, suddenly everything else works better in your home and your
Absolutely.
children will feel that love and they'll know how to emulate that in their own relationships. So,
All right, so click on the link in the show notes. We'll send that information out to you. Cannot wait for you to start putting this into practice because it's what we have done and it has made a world of difference in our marriage. With that, you guys, our friends, we're so excited that you're here. Thank you. We cannot wait. We have another episode coming up that is going to be actually a subset of this one about parenting and showing up as your absolute best. We cannot wait to share that with you. Thanks, you guys.